My friends, what you're about to see destroys the greatest military myth of the last decade. Pay close attention to the image that is taking shape right now on the international stage. A cargo ship burning in flames, surrounded by impenetrable darkness. But this is not just any ocean. This is happening in the middle of the Caspian Sea, exactly 1,280 kilometers away from the nearest Ukrainian soldier. A closed, isolated body of water where Ukraine has no navy, no ports, and theoretically absolutely no ability to project military power. And yet the fire is there lighting up the night. Because for a long time, the Caspian Sea was considered Vladimir Putin's private lake. It was the Kremlin's inviolable sanctuary. A place where the Russian leader could ride along the untouched shore, believing that geography and distance were perfect shields against any retaliation. But the lightning attack on the night of July 25 proves that geography as a protective barrier is dead. The vulnerability of the axis between Moscow and Tehran was exposed for all to see. This is where we establish our central metaphor for today. The image that will guide this entire analysis and melt away the old way of looking at war. The glassboard. Write that down. The glassboard. Russia and Iran believed they were moving their pieces in the dark, hidden under the table. But modern technology and tactical intelligence have turned the battlefield into one vast glassboard. There's nowhere to hide anymore. Every move, no matter how stealthy it tries to be, is seen from below, from above, and punished with surgical precision. The story that was initially told spoke only of a ship. But let's lay out the full anatomy of this operation on the table. Why didn't the attack on July 25th hit an isolated target? The Ukrainian attack package was massive and coordinated, hitting 4 strategic targets simultaneously. First, the oil platform. Offshore Filanovsky, operated by the Russian giant Lukoil. Second, the cargo ship Porte, Luk. Third, the ship Beg. And to crown the operation, a Russian Molniya-class fast attack missile boat, the feared Project 12418. And just so you understand, they didn't just sink a smuggling ship. They hit the energy extraction infrastructure, the transport logistics, and the lethal military escort, all in the same night. Moscow lost control of its private lake. The Caspian Sea became a free fire zone. Now let's focus on Beg. Ukrainian intelligence tracked that this vessel, sanctioned by the UK and Canada, was loaded with ammunition, artillery shells, ballistic vests, and essential components for Shahed drones. And here, the narrative flips. This arsenal wasn't going from Russia to Iran. The flow was the opposite. The cargo was leaving Iranian ports straight to Russian bases. Iran is not an opportunistic client. Iran has officially taken on the role of primary arms dealer for the Russian war machine. And the war of narratives around Beg exposes the desperation of the Axis. Officially, the ship was flying the Russian flag and was Russian-owned. But as soon as it started burning in the Caspian, the Tehran government issued a fierce diplomatic protest, claiming that it was an Iranian merchant ship with an Iranian crew. They are so closely linked militarily and economically that Iran takes up the cause and claims a Russian hull as its own. It's not just two countries cooperating, it's a single military apparatus operating together. And as they try to hide this shadow fleet operating with cartel-like tactics, records show that the crew of the Beg turned off their transponders on 11 separate occasions while approaching critical Iranian ports such as Amirabad, New Niwashar, Astara, and Anzali. You should know that the transponder is the mandatory digital identity of any vessel. Turning it off is not a technical failure, it's an admission of guilt. But what happens after the cargo leaves Amirabad? This is where land geopolitics comes into play. The weapons cross the waters to the port of Makhachkala in Dagestan, already in Russian territory. And from there, the arsenal is escorted by air and land directly to the 2 specific military launch bases. The first is Sasha in the Bryansk region and Primorsko-Atarsk in Krasnodar. These locations are not mere depots. Secha and Primorsko-Atarsk are the exact launch platforms from where the drones take off to destroy the power grid and residential buildings in Kiev. The real impact of this is Ukraine is no longer waiting for the drone to appear in its airspace to try to shoot it down. They are cutting the backbone of the enemy's logistics at the source. But then you ask me, Shibao, but how do you track dozens of ghost ships operating without a signal in a sea surrounded by enemy anti-air defenses? The answer defines military intelligence, my friend. Ukrainian intelligence set up a public portal called War and Sanctions. Right now, this portal meticulously tracks the route of 66 vessels and pay attention to the actors mentioned. They monitor the shadow fleet of Russia, Iran, and Venezuela. Caracas, Tehran, and Moscow operating in the same smuggling network. The method is relentless. And the portal records every gap in the ship's signal. It tracks ownership through shell companies and then triggers the eye in the sky. That eye is the Synthetic Aperture Radar, or SAR, satellite operated by the Finnish company ICY. In June 2022, the Ukrainian population organized an online fundraiser and raised $13 million in 3 days. And the result? The people bought a spy satellite. The SAR system fires radar energy beams from 500 kilometers up and reconstructs the image of the surface, ignoring clouds, storms, and the darkness of night. The satellite has already delivered more than 5,900 ultra-high precision radar images. The monopoly on space intelligence, which once belonged only to the superpowers of the Cold War, has been democratized. And when Beg turned off its signal, the radar hit the empty, luminous space. It blew up the hull in the middle of the night and turned it into a bright target on our glassboard. But intelligence without kinetic force is just observation. The executor of this sentence was the A-196 Luthi, which means fierce. This aerial predator was manufactured by the state giant Ukrobronprom, together with the legendary Antonov design. The irony is sharp, my friends. The project began in October 2022 as a direct response to the Shahed drone terror campaign. Exactly the cargo it just sent to the bottom. Luthi's engineering is rough and efficient. Piston engine with a pusher propeller, complex inertial navigation, immune to jamming, and a 75-kilogram warhead with no landing gear. It's a machine built for sacrifice. And its growing range is a nightmare for the Kremlin. The Luthi broke the confirmed record with a range of 1,750 kilometers. To destroy the ship and the Lukoil platform, these drones flew more than 2,280 kilometers, sweeping across southern Russia without being intercepted once. This exposes the lie of Russian air defense. The airspace is so stretched, covering scattered critical assets, that the network has ripped open. The drone found the gap and threaded the needle and annihilated the main source of Iranian military funding. And in the face of the Caspian collapse, the diplomatic reaction was the height of cynicism. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi rushed to the UN Security Council, labeling the attack as a hostile criminal act. They traffic heavy weapons in large quantities for a war of territorial annexation. And when the smuggling ship explodes, they put on the mask of victims before the international community. But Ukraine no longer plays the appeasement game. President Volodymyr Zelensky publicly confirmed the attack with great pride. And the acting foreign minister Andriy Sybiha buried the Iranian narrative with a surgical statement. The regime in Tehran is a direct accomplice to Russian aggression, and Iran has no moral ground to pretend to be the victim. Strategic patience is over. Iran is in panic because the Caspian route was its last port, a safe haven for revenue. With the naval blockade crushing revenue sources in the south, the dictatorship is losing about $500 million a day. The Caspian was the lifeline for the Revolutionary Guard and the Quds forces, and that balloon just burst. And right now in our analysis, I'm going to deliver the verdict of our elite community on the logistical collapse of the Axis. I want you to type these two keywords in the comments right now: blind spot destroyed, the global hunt. Blind spot destroyed and global hunt.
Ponto cego destruído e caçada global.
What we witnessed in the Caspian Sea was the annihilation of Putin's strategic blind spot, unleashing a true global hunt against the dictatorships that finance terror. Use these words in the comments so we can make our view of the chessboard clear. We are deciphering the global engineering of power and breaking through the bubble of the hegemonic narrative. But pay attention to one thing. Right now, I am competing for the iBestie award in the political influencer category. Being there is not a vanity project. It's to show the absolute strength that our community of elite analysts has to overthrow the system and traditional journalism that went there to mourn the death of the Ayatollah. So I'm asking for your vote now. It takes 10 seconds and the official link is in the first line of the description and in the pinned comment. Go there and show the strength of our voice. We went from the 44th position and today we occupy first place in the ranking for the national top 20 political influencers in Brazil. So I'm counting on your vote because there are only 24 hours left for this ranking to happen and for our community to move to the next stage. And if you think the pressure stopped at the Caspian, the reality of the Middle East is going to turn your understanding upside down. The global hunt has escalated. It has escalated on a tectonic scale. Two of the smallest countries in the region, Bahrain and Kuwait, secretly sent Bahrain's F-16 fighters and Kuwait's Hornets, tearing through Iranian airspace to destroy strategic missile and drone depots. And they didn't act blindly. The United Arab Emirates provided target intelligence and air defense coverage. The historical impact of this is incalculable. Arab nations that for decades maintained a reactive stance. Nations are now carrying out direct and coordinated offensive operations inside Tehran. A strategic and lethal pincer has formed. Ukraine is choking the regime from the north while the Arab coalition is squeezing from the south. And the proof that we are not dealing with separate wars but with a single integrated adversarial architecture is in space. Intelligence confirmed that Russian satellites photographed the Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia exactly 3 times before the brutal Iranian attack in March that left 12 American service members wounded, and the cooperation continued. Those same Russian satellites mapped 4 other air bases in the Persian Gulf on July 19th and 20th alone. My friends, Moscow is providing orbital intelligence so that Iran can target Western troops with missiles. It's a single military entity. And the West is finally starting to understand that. Admiral Brad Cooper, commander of the American CENTCOM, suggested a tactical pause in the bombings in the Strait of Hormuz for a simple reason: lack of targets. The campaign there has reached the limit of its effectiveness. The United States did not run out of ammunition. They ran out of low-level targets. So the next logical step in this escalation puts Tehran against the wall. If large-scale kinetic operations are resumed to eliminate the remaining 20 high-value targets, Karg Island, the mega-terminal responsible for the overwhelming majority of Iran's crude oil exports, comes into the crosshairs. If the glass board reveals Karg as the next target, what will be left of the Ayatollah's regime the next morning? That's the question everyone is asking. Now, my friends, the system isolates those who don't know how to communicate. On the market board, the logic is exactly the same as in geopolitics. Today, the most valuable currency on the planet is people's attention. Yes, my friends. If a politician, a businessman, or a country doesn't have people's attention, it doesn't exist. And for the businessman, what hurts the most is being the best at what he does and not being seen. You have a great business, you have great knowledge, but nobody knows you exist. Have you noticed how hard it is for people to find serious content on social media? It seems like only silly dances and pointless memes go viral. I used to think the same way. 15 years ago, when I started in this field on radio, television, and the internet, it was very different. That's when I realized that the mechanism to build authority depends mainly on content and a solid strategy. And today, generating 50 million views per month on my social networks, I proved that the method works. Many entrepreneurs want to break out of the bubble, to have your product and service recognized, and to see your effort generating thousands of views and business opportunities. I managed to monetize mine in dollars. But they still haven't understood that the game now is about media. The game is to retain attention and deliver valuable content. Look at what Shipments and Havan stores did. They tripled their sales. One is a pharmaceutical company. The other is a department store that understood they also needed to become media companies. And the reality is that your identity can't be outsourced. The business owner needs to be the face of the business. They need to direct the vision of the business. The time when you could record with your phone without any authority and still manage to show up and sell is over. Today, that space is competitive. It requires lethal professionalism. So, if you want to gain authority and make the algorithm work for you, allowing you to have higher margins, serve better clients, and have access to things that used to be restricted, pay attention. On August 16th, I will hold this immersion 100% in person, face-to-face with me at my professional studio in Curitiba. It will be a hands-on session. I will personally follow, guide, and direct you in building your authority so your business can present itself professionally and with a tested method. QR code on the screen, secure link in the description and in the first pinned comment. But I struggled with the numbers, and you know that. There are only 5 spots left. When the last spot is taken, the steel door closes, and then I have no timeline for bringing this idea back. So click now on the link that appears in the comments and in the description. Secure your spot and bulletproof your communication. And if you want to give your mind a break and stop wasting time looking for a movie or series on streaming platforms only to run into pre-packaged agendas, check out our channel focused on culture. There we always give tips on series and movies. Spot-on picks focused on strong storytelling. No whining, no woke culture. The link is in the description, in the first pinned comment, and in the card that will appear on your screen. You can also become a member and support this video and this community right here. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and leave a like on the video because it takes a lot of work to bring this to you, my friends. This is top quality and exclusive information. Now shield your mind. I'm Shimon Oliveira, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.